The mankind, unfortunately, yesterday had to see the Air India's 787 Dreamliners crash in Ahmedabad, which not only took 242 lives of the people on board, but it also affected and took other lives in Meghaninagar in the nearby residential area. It was a very unfortunate incident and a tragedy where the causes as of now are still unknown. But in today's session, we are going to talk about that how such incidences do take place mostly in the takeoff and landing phases. We'll also try to understand, have there been past accusation against this particular airliner? We'll also talk about what India's civil aviation sector looks like. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram's and Ravi Simplified. My name is Shubhangi Singh and let us begin today's discussion. So let us talk about the incident that took place yesterday first. What happened exactly yesterday was that the airliner, Air India's Boeing 787 Dreamliner, took off from Ahmedabad and it was supposed to go to London Gatwick. But after few seconds of takeoff, when it was merely at the height of 300 to 400 feet, that flight crashed. 242 people who were on board died, and it has also taken lives in the nearby residential area of Meghaninagar, which is densely populated. Now this crash highlights the clear incidents that it happened just after taking off, and the cause of crash remains to be unknown. However, DGCA has ordered an inquiry into it and we are yet to receive the answers. However, there have been previous incidences where whistleblowers such as Sam Somalapur in 2024, we also have John Barnett in 2019, who have highlighted issues with Boeing 787's functioning. But as of now, the clear reason of this particular incident is unknown. Now, when we talk about such accidents, we have to understand that mostly they take place during two phases. The first one is takeoff and landing. We'll be getting into the details of this later, but first let us talk about that what is this airliner or the airplane in which the crash has taken place, that is Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Now, Boeing 787 Dreamliner is an American wide plane airliner and it is manufactured by Boeing Commercial Planes. Now, it was introduced by Boeing in 2007 and it is known for its better features and efficient use. The first commercial flight of this particular plane was in 2012 and the plane that has crashed yesterday, it was delivered to Air India in 2014. That means this plane has been already in service for 10 plus years. Now we have to understand that the plane has been present for 10 plus years and there have been two delays in past year for the same airplane, which has been mentioned in December and November of last year, where there was an issue in the engine, where there was an issue with the fuel surge. Now, this particular crash has already added to the ongoing scrutiny of Boeing, following that we saw crashes of 737 MAX. 737 MAX is a different airplane and we saw its crashes in 2018 and 2019. Now, there were certain key features because of which this particular Boeing 787 is known for. Now, let us look into that. The structure of this particular Boeing is different. It has carbon fiber composite body, which makes it lightweight. The fuel efficiency is 25% higher. That means it uses 25% less fuel. Passenger comfort is higher. There are larger windows and there is better cabin pressure, humidity, and it also allows more space. Furthermore, there are many variants which are present to it, like 787-8, 787-9 and 787-10. Now, because of these key features, Boeing 787 has been an adaptive airliner which has been used by Air India for very long years. Now, even after these key features, what went wrong? What went wrong? It could be the parts of airplane, but it could be also the most difficult phases, that is takeoff and landing, that we discussed in the start. Now, if we look at the most difficult phases of takeoff and landing, there are certain specific reasons because of which these crashes mostly occur in these phases. Now, let us look at some data here. So, if we look at the aviation data, it clearly highlights that if accidents or crashes are taking place, it is majorly during either landing, takeoff, or phases just before or after this. So, just before landing or just after takeoff. These are the phases which are most complex and most vulnerable in terms of flight's operation, in terms of flight handling, and in terms of flight stages. Now, let us look at the given data so understand how we have seen the crash statistics. 53% of all accidents have happened in landing phase. We have 8.5% in takeoff. When the plane is approaching just before landing, 8.5%. Initial climb, that is after takeoff, 6.1%. And sometimes because of rejected takeoff, that is only 1.8%. So if you see the numbers here, you can clearly understand that more than almost 70% comes in from here. More than 70% is coming from just landing and takeoff. Now, what are the reasons that specifically it is at this time that the plane is not able to take the flight, or the flight is disrupted, or the crash or accidents are happening? Now, the first reason that we see is the low and slow factor. So, plane at this very point of time is going at a very less altitude, as well as the speed is very much limited. If the plane is at a given altitude, it can remain suspended, it can maintain the flight even after engine failure. But because plane is at a low altitude, there is no or limited time to handle the emergency situation that is particularly occurring. Apart from this, we have also seen that the engine stress is the highest at the time of takeoff and landing. When we are talking about the maximum load that we see on the engine is during this particular time, and which leads to multiple times we have seen failure of it. Apart from that, pilot workload. When we are talking about landings, it is the time wherein the pilot has to comprehend multiple aspects, be it speed, wind, runway, and aircraft weight. And this increases the load of pilot at multiple levels. And it is difficult to manage such a situation with multiple aspects to be handled. Apart from that, we also have seen the stall risk. So if we are talking about stalls, they are more likely during the steep takeoff. When the angle of takeoff is, let's just say, if this is the angle or if this is the angle, this is a steeper takeoff. It becomes too high. When we are talking about stall, it just means sudden loss of lift. That means the plane is not able to lift itself. And if the plane is not able to lift itself, potentially it is going to crash or fall in the nearby area. Other than that, there are other environmental hazards as well. For example, the most common one we have seen is the bird strike, turbulence, and bad weather, which are very common at lower altitudes because the maximum phenomena tends to occur in the troposphere. This is the place where we see maximum environmental hazard taking place. Now we have understood multiple reasons because of which we see accidents and crashes mainly during the time of takeoff and landing. Now let us talk about that how this has been a major crash just after 5 years. Last crash that we saw was in 2020, and when we are talking about this particular crash, it happened It happened in Vizag. Now that we have understood multiple factors associated with the reasons of accident and crashes of airliners, especially during landing and takeoff, let us get into understanding how this fatal accident has taken place again after 5 years. Last time this accident happened 5 years back in 2020 in Kozhikode. Now, in this particular accident in Kozhikode airport, it was Boeing 737 again, but it is a different model. This time it was 787, this time it is Boeing 737, the same Boeing commercial planes company. But this plane overshot the runway. Let's just say if this is the runway and it was a tabletop runway, it overshot and skidded into this valley, because of which 21 fatalities were seen, including both pilots. Now, this aircraft was part of the Vande Bharat mission, and this particular 737, I'm talking about Boeing 737, it was part of Vande Bharat mission, which was responsible for bringing Indian expatriates during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this highlights that the problems can be seen across models. It is not limited to 787, but there are certain factors that can be kept in mind, which are important for civil aviations. And in such factors, when we will be talking about Indian civil aviation sector, we'll also see that multiple challenges are present along. Now, let us talk about how does India's civil aviation sector look like. At present, India has the third largest aviation market globally, and we have to understand that makes us more responsible. That has to make us more responsible so as to ensure as much as we are growing multiple folds, but we are remaining responsible to the issues. Rapid increase in domestic as well as international travel demand has been seen. There has been expansion of regional airports as well as low-cost carriers. The regional airports in the recent time have seen a jump of 4x in terms of numbers. Apart from that, let us also understand what has been the trajectory of Air India's transformation in recent time. Air India was initially state-owned, formerly it was state-owned, and it was disinvested, and it was acquired by the Tata Group in 2022. Later, it was merged with Vistara and Tata Singapore Airlines so that it can be built as an airline powerhouse. And the whole idea of this airline powerhouse was to modernize the fleet, improvise safety, and become globally competitive. But in this idea, this particular crash not just is a big blot on humanity, but it also stands as a big blot on the idea of becoming globally competitive. So when we are talking about becoming globally competitive, it's important to address the challenges that are present in our way. Now let us quickly look at the challenges that the civil aviation sector at present faces. So in terms of infrastructure, we are lacking because extreme amount of constraints are present. Our metropolitan most important airports, be it Delhi, be it Mumbai, they are up to their capacity and they are inadequate in terms of tier 2 and tier 3 cities that airports we are seeing. Slow pace of airport modernization as well as expansion is hampering the civil aviation. The next thing that becomes very important to address is the high operation cost. High taxation that is present on ATF, that is aviation turbine fuel, is one of the biggest operational costs, and it is 40% of the airline's operational cost. This high operational cost is the reason that there are high airport charges, there are ground handling fees, are all up. Another challenge that we are facing in terms of civil aviation is the high operational cost, which comes from the aviation turbine fuel. The high cost of aviation turbine fuel because of high taxation makes up to the 40% of airlines operational cost. Because of that and the rising fuel prices, increase the fare, and also the airlines are at loss, which leads to high airport charges and ground handling fees as well. We also get to see, in terms of challenges, the financial stress that is present on airlines because of high operational cost, which leads to frequent bankruptcy, be it Jet Airways, be it Go First, be it Kingfisher Airlines. And this intense price competition leaves them with very thin profit margin. If the profit margin will be thin, the businesses will be limited, competition would be limited, and the consumers will not get a variety of choice. Apart from that, the skilled manpower is also present in limited numbers. There is a shortage to it because adequately trained pilots are limited, maintenance engineers and as well as ATC staff. Flight training academies, they are still struggling to meet the demand which is growing with the growth of civil aviation sector. We are also seeing here that there are regulatory and policy issues, which directly points us to the crash that has happened. If there is a proper regulatory oversight over airliners, over the airline companies, this mishap could have been avoided. There's a possibility it could have been avoided. The bureaucratic delays in approvals and policy execution, complex licensing, need for clearer long-term aviation plan, all these makes it difficult. The policy changes, the regulatory changes, they are difficult to comprehend for companies, and they are not followed up by proper oversight as well. We also see safety oversight and compliance issues. For example, there are concerns over DGCA's audit capacity. Because the fleet of airliners is expanding, the DGCA's audit capacity remains limited. Are they doing enough to audit all these airliners? There has been inconsistent maintenance and compliance across small carriers, and all these point again towards the crash that has happened. There is a possibility this was not the reason, but this remains a challenge, and in the civil aviation market, we need to address this in coming time so as to assure that in coming times we do not see another fatal accident tragedy just like that we saw yesterday. That was all from my side. Please put down in the comment section, what do you think should be done to ensure at the best that such incidents do not take place, and who is responsible for such incidents? That was all from my side. Thank you so much.